All right, today is February 28, 2019. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. Today on the agenda, first we have the updates to the items that we're working on for this quarter as a SIG, and then we'll go over any PRs or designs that need review. Feel free to add any items there, and if there's anything else that you'd like to discuss, feel free to add it to the agenda document as well. So let's go ahead and jump to the planning spreadsheet and we'll get started. So first up, excuse me, is the migration engine for migrating in-tree volume plugins to CSI. So the last status update was OpenStack Cinder drivers were being migrated along with EBS and GCE PD. David, Cheng, or Deep, any updates on this?
Yes, so basically things are moving along pretty nicely. So the attach, detach, and the mount, unmount parts are all in for the entry portion. The provisioning entry bits are in. There are some bits remaining in the external provisioner and the CSI external provisioner side. So the external provisioner lib and the CSI external provisioner. So that's basically in progress. And I believe some initial work has started around also the in-tree migration pieces. The inline volume migration pieces.
And the last one was the external provisioner work is started.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yep. Thank you very much, Deep.
Sure.
Next item is the CSI inline volume support. Vlad's been working diligently on this. Vlad, any updates on this? See if Vlad's on the line today. He is not. Anybody else able to give an update for him?
Yeah, I can give an update. The API is looking good. I think the only thing remaining now is we need the controller changes and tests.
Cool. And there was also a update here to try to reduce the scope of what we're going to do for inline.
Yes, that's correct. Before we were trying to support both ephemeral and persistent inline CSI drivers, but the use case for CSI persistent inline volumes was not very strong. Because a lot of features require PVs for persistent volumes, so we were able to find a way to make we were able to find a way to make the inline the inline in-tree migration to CSI work without requiring support for a first-class persistent CSI inline volume.
Awesome. So I see Vlad just popped in as well. Vlad, if you have any updates, feel free to add.
Oh, yeah. So work is continuing. I'm working on the actual implementation and internal implementation.
Cool.
To have something out as soon as possible. So, yeah. Thank you for everything. Yep.
Thank you. Next item is moving CSI block volume support to beta. Is Ben on the line by any chance?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm currently code reviewing the CSI host path driver changes. There have been a number of other things that have spun out of this, including that thread on the CSI mail list about node publish volume. So there's been some distractions along the way, but the plan is still to get the CSI driver feature merged and work on improving the tests, and to not muck around with the internal CSI code in kubelet yet, because right now that code matches the spec more closely than the file system. The raw block implementation matches it more closely than the file system version does. So we still have that to sort out later, but there's still hope to getting the raw block stuff in. We just have to do the testing.
Okay, and is are there changes on the entry side that have to get in?
Just it would be new test cases if we identify any, and then the official designation of the feature as beta are the only changes. All of the new code is CSI host path driver. And there was a patch to change the way that Kubelet interacted with the CSI plugins, but we've decided not to merge that because of the whole confusion around the CSI spec.
Okay. That sounds good. And as a reminder, code freeze for entry is March 7, which is end of next week.
It's Thursday next week, right?
Oh, is it Thursday? Yes, you're right. So keep that in mind. And looks like we're on track though. So thank you. Next.
Oh, one more reminder. Docs are due tomorrow.
Placeholder PRs for docs.
Yeah.
Placeholder PRs, meaning you just need to open up a PR saying, I will fill out the contents of this thing. You don't actually need to have the content ready by tomorrow. Next item is adding support for online-offline resizing, aka volume expansion. Hamad, updates on this?
Yeah, so the controller resize, like external work is going on for entry changes. I'm going to open a PR today or worst case tomorrow, so I'm working on it. The one blocker is that we might need, not might need, but we will need CSI 1.1 tag.
Okay, so I haven't seen if you followed up, but we need to kind of declare that we need a release in the CSI community. And if folks agree, if we declare there's a, I believe, 3-day waiting period for folks to accept or reject. So we should send out that email today. I think the schedule that should be proposed would be on Monday, we declare that we're cutting a CSI 1.1 RC. And then 3 days later, we actually go ahead and cut it.
Yeah, I followed up on that. Yesterday
Okay.
I sent an email with the timeline.
Okay. And any responses to that or?
No responses yet so far.
Okay. We might get pushback there because it's so quick.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll take up the conversation there.
Okay.
All right. Next item is CSI driver lifecycle management, installing, upgrading, etc. Jan, any updates on this?
I started. I will probably start a document or start a call next week, but it won't be in 1.14. Maybe the design could. As a background, Red Hat is very opinionated how it's going to install CSI drivers. So maybe I'm not the right one because I will represent Red Hat and its opinions, and it may not be fine for everybody.
Okay. I think that's okay. Feel free to kind of put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Internally, Chang at Google is also looking at ways to install CSI drivers. And maybe we can learn from each other and come up with common stuff. Thank you, Jan. Next item, topology to beta. For CSI, this item was being worked on by Deep. Last status was it was unblocked on CRD. We got an OK from SIG to move to built-in types. So you were blocked on that. Is that still the case?
No, I think this is moving forward. So Xing has a PR out for to move all the APIs to beta. And along with that, topology will get moved to beta automatically.
Is there any separate feature flag for topology?
No, it's under the CSI node info feature gate.
Okay.
Which I think encompasses topology, mostly topology. Maybe migration, it uses it a little bit too.
Okay, perfect. Next up is, actually, before we do that, let's jump to number 10. Let's move that up. So status update here is PR is out and in review. All right, let's move on to the next item, secure volumes, coming up with a design here. Jing, anything to share? So I know Jing has a doc she's been circulating internally. I'm not sure if it's ready for wider consumption yet.
Yeah, I think we're still trying to discuss or trying to iron down the scope of what we want to deliver. So I think we're still doing sort of benefits and trade-offs and cost benefits and trade-offs and that kind of thing.
Okay, sounds good. Next item is scalability testing. Patrick or Michelle?
I have a Capout. I think it is getting close to merging. I have Wojtek has been reviewing this, and I think he just has some minor comments, and I need to fix them up. But otherwise, it should be ready to go.
Cool. Thank you, Michelle. Redesigning keys for per volume node attach limits. This was design only, so not subject to feature freeze. Hemant, any updates on this one?
Yeah, I'm working on a cap. We discussed a design with SIG scheduling and Bobby Bala last like 2 weeks back. So just working on a cap, updating the cap.
Perfect, thank you. Next up is a pluggable end-to-end test framework. Michelle or Patrick, any updates on this, or Brad?
So I think Patrick actually has most of his changes in. I think the last thing that's remaining is we need some documentation and an example of how to actually use it. I think that was something I think both Patrick and maybe Matt Wong or Mathuson were gonna take on.
Okay, sounds good. That is excellent progress. Next item, Kubernetes conformance testing. Sri?
Yeah. Hi, I added about 3 PRs yesterday, as of yesterday, covering about 9 tests in the validation suite. There are more in the list that Michelle had in that PR. I'll work on that before the code freeze. But validation suite will be the larger suite, and then we promote individual tests into conformance if they are portable. So I did discuss this with conformance group yesterday. So.
Okay, and conformance group is happy?
Yep. Kind of.
Perfect, thank you so much. Next item, moving local PV to GA. Last status was added a lot of tests, ironing out flaky issues. Haven't looked into any race conditions. Hemant, any updates on that?
Michelle might have better update. Like we have identified that. Yeah, Michelle, like you.
Oh, sure, I can give the update. Yeah, so we added a bunch of tests and we found issues. I think some of them are sort of corner case issues, mostly around reconstruction. So I'm still trying to kind of evaluate if we want those issues to be solved before GA or not. Most of them are sort of rare corner cases, so I need to think about that at this point. Other than that, we're working on stabilizing the new tests that we added. And then other than that, we should be good to go.
Cool. All right, thank you very much, Michelle. Next item is cleaning up. Actually, we're already complete with that, so we'll skip. Next up is non-recursive volume ownership. Matt Smith or Hemant, any updates on this? Looks like the KEP did not merge. There were some outstanding questions about user namespace and UID. So this changed into just design for this quarter.
Yeah, that's correct. We have to kind of, Michelle had a comment that we need to consider how this like ties into the whole UID, GID thing and the user namespaces. I think that's fair. So we'll just reconsider our design choices. We'll make it design only this quarter.
Okay, so let's just call it in progress for now. Is anyone actively working on this, either Matt or Hemant, or?
Not been able to do anything this month on it,
Okay.
but there's been a lot of discussion on at least some KEPs that are related to it.
Okay.
I'm not sure what's going to come out of it quite yet.
All right, cool. So this is a very big space with a lot of overlapping features, so that makes sense. Next item is revisiting UID GID handling, which is very much related. We had not started on that last time. Brad, any updates on that?
No, yeah. I mean, I've stressed out about it for a week, but I don't have an update.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, it might be worth syncing up with Matt and Hemant and seeing if there's some common threads between these two items.
Yeah, I'm planning to set up a call like as soon as some of this the resizing stuff that gets done, so that we can pick up this.
That makes sense. I mean, the design stuff we can punt to post feature freeze, code freeze. Okay, next item is volume health. Nick Wren was working on a design for this. There was a document that was out under review. Either Xing or anybody else have an update on this?
So I synced up with Nick. So his draft spec right now is more focused on local storage. So we still need to add more content for network storage and also for CSI.
Okay.
So I need more work.
Cool. Thank you, Xing. Next item is CSI entry post GA tasks. We were looking for an owner here last time. We did not find an owner.
I think Andrew has offered to take ownership of this.
Awesome.
Yeah,
At
so
least
I
on
already
some of the
merged
items.
the PR. Sorry, I was hearing some echo. So yeah, I already merged the PR to update the Pollards for V1 Beta 1 volume attachments to V1.
Sweet.
I'm working with Michelle on the read-only stuff, which seems a bit complicated. So I don't think that's gonna happen for 114, but for the 115 timeline, I can work with Michelle to clean up some of the read-only stuff.
Okay, that sounds good. So we'll put... Awesome. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Yep, no problem. Thanks.
Next item is automating sidecar release and test process. I saw the KEP out for this by Patrick. Any other updates here?
I think the main update is that I think Patrick has already developed some framework for consistently building and pushing all the sidecar images to our Quay repository. So now it's a lot easy, and it's based off of Git tags. So it's a lot easier now to push images and cut and push images. It still has to be manually done by the release, I guess the release holders, but the process is a lot better than it was before. I think next Patrick is trying to look into adding automated E2Es on all the sidecars.
That is awesome. This is great, great progress. I remember doing all the manual cutting of the images for the sidecar containers for CSI. So seeing that process get automated is awesome. Thank you very much for all the work there. Next item is refactored kubelet driver registration to reconciliation model. The person who was working on it left some comments on the PR about how exactly to implement it. I responded to those comments, and she is still taking a look at that and working on the PR. So PR in progress. I don't know if it's going to make it in the 1.14 code freeze timeframe, but I'll keep an eye on it. Okay, next item is volume snapshots. This was mostly design. There were some KEPs out that were under review. Shing, any updates on that?
Yeah, still being reviewed. Yeah, there's some review comments adjusted, and then there's new comments. So
okay, cool.
Still ongoing.
Yeah, no, these designs can take a while, so understandable. And feel free to ping me if you need anything reviewed.
Okay, thanks.
Next item is CSI Library moving Mount Library to external common code. Travis, are you on the line by any chance?
I am. Finally, some good progress to report there. I took the larger PR that was out there and I've been splitting it into smaller pieces, and the first one of those merged yesterday. You were the last approver on that, Saad. So
awesome.
Subpath, refactoring subpath out of the mount package is what that covered. And I've got a couple smaller steps that I'm working on right now. I'm still not sure whether or not the whole thing will be moved by code freeze. But working on it and making lots of positive steps along the way.
That is awesome. Thank you very much, Travis. Great work. All right, cool. Next item is provisioning capacity reporting for generic topology. We had no owner for this last time. Any changes to that? Okay, I'm going to assume there's still no owner for capacity. We'll probably end up moving that to next quarter. Next item is subpath expansion work. Kev?
Yeah, so this PR has made it in. There were some new test failures in the Node E2E environment. So far, it looks like the test failures are due to environment issues and not functional issues. So we're still working those out.
Cool. Thank you very much, Michelle. Post-GA entry topology work. What was the item here?
So I had a brief sync up with Michelle, and it's pretty much something I plan to look at, like post 114 freeze. Mainly.
Okay. And could you quickly summarize what the item was here?
I believe this is around like coming up with a strategy to make sure that some of the new storage classes do have the mode that says do not immediately start scheduling, like basically wait for the pod to show up that requires a claim. And how we can potentially look at a model where that becomes the default setting.
It becomes what?
It becomes the default setting for
okay.
storage classes.
Okay. Making late binding.
Yeah, late binding, right. I forgot the term.
Cool. Thank you very much. That sounds like it could be pretty useful. Next item is moving the NFS driver to a separate repo. So it looks like there's been good progress there. Mathusin or anyone else want to give an update here?
Seems to be merged. I think Pratik, Pratik's PR got merged.
So
I think the main thing that's remaining is some cleanup work and also enabling the, I guess, cleaning up the driver and also coming up with deployment scripts, I guess, to so that someone could just like run a script and it'll go install the driver.
Okay. And there's no CI/CD yet, right? Or any test?
No, that's something Patrick is working on, but he's currently only looking at it for the host path driver.
Okay.
But it should be possible that the work he leverages it should be able to leverage that work for other drivers too.
Okay. So good progress. The code is there. We need to do more work to make it usable. I need to add CI/CD testing, deployment scripts, cut an official release of the new NFS images, and then deprecate the old one that we have and put.
I also think I don't know if we updated the driver to support 1.0 yet.
Okay.
That might be one more thing.
So let's say update to CSI 1.0, add tests, add deployment scripts, add CI/CD, cut new branch / images, put deprecation notice on old repo. Okay, so good progress, but still a lot more work left to do. Thank you, Mathusin, for that update, and thank you, Michelle. Next is iSCSI. John, are you on the line for iSCSI? Or anybody else? Okay, we'll get an update for that next time. I forget if the PR is merged for iSCSI or not. I remember taking a look at it.
I think the basic PR has merged, but it has similar items as the NFS driver to get it up to deliverable quality.
Okay, awesome. So that's some progress. And then finally, fiber channel. Any updates on that one?
Yeah, Michelle left a review for that, so I've been going through that and adding some unit tests.
Okay, so PR is under review.
Also, I forget if we've asked this already, but is anyone here familiar with fiber channel and wants to help with reviewing things?
Is Wamin a good candidate for that, maybe, Brad?
No, honestly, he's moved on to another project.
Okay.
Frankly, the problem that we have here is finding hardware for it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, if we don't have the labs, and I think there's like one team at Red Hat that has a couple boxes that we can go and borrow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like one day every 3 weeks.
Yep.
Let me dig into this some though.
Brad, what is your wish list for the hardware you'd like to have?
Well, I'd like my team to have some any kind of dedicated hardware that we could connect to. You know, if we could just have like some system that we could stick in a lab someplace and use, that would be fine. We don't have to have anything huge, but right now we have nothing except whatever we have to borrow or whatever we can borrow. So if people had hardware they could donate, we'd be down to take it and, then we'd be able to review this and test it a little bit better.
Now, you obviously need servers with fiber channel, but I assume you need some kind of storage with it too, or do you have access to some software-defined storage that would support it on the other end?
No, we don't have. We would need both.
Okay.
Wasn't there a Hitachi guy there that's co-located where Woman is, Brad?
Yeah, but he's moved out. That's the team that we can borrow it from. And like I said, we can borrow it sometimes, but it's pretty limited access. Like we'll ask for it and we'll get it a couple days and then we're off. So it's just not something that, it's not something we have enough access to really commit to doing, having ownership of the full plugin. But let me dig and see if we can find something. Maybe, and that said, maybe I could put out a call to the community and say, hey, if we have some hardware that people want to donate, we could locate it in a Red Hat lab and that would allow us to test.
I guess if it's not possible to be able to support or test the driver, should we even try?
I think we can put the driver out there. Fiber channel, iSCSI, and NFS are weird because no one's really going to take ownership of them. We can put out what we think works, and if anybody wants to use it, they use it at their own risk. And if they're interested in helping maintain and test it, awesome. If you have hardware that you can help us to review it and test it, great. For now, we'll keep it as like a prototype. And if anyone's interested in moving it beyond prototype, they can actually help us test it out.
That's kind of what I think. If we had priority, just speaking from Red Hat's point of view, if we had a customer that had a whole bunch of fiber channel hardware, I'm sure they would find it in our budget to give us some hardware to test on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so as soon as this becomes a fire for someone, then it'll define itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Brad, I no longer work for Dell, but I think I know some people. I won't make promises, but I'll put out some feelers to see if somebody might be able to get some equipment.
That would be great because they're in Austin, and I'd love to have a fiber channel set up in my house here.
I didn't know that's where you were going to host it.
That was
with that cold weather lately too, maybe that'd help heat your house.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Next item is online resizing to beta for the general entry feature. This is design only. Last status update here was that the KEP didn't merge because there were unresolved issues. So we changed this to a design for this quarter. And I think Hemant was planning a follow-up call with SIG Storage. Hemant, are you planning on putting this off until post-code freeze?
Yeah, but just a quick update. I presented this to SIG Apps
okay.
This week as well, and the feedback I got was like it's not a block. It's not the no blocker issue they have. They want online resizing to be default. The fact that some workload needs to be restarted after the file system resizing has been done is like orthogonal to how the resizing itself should work. The workload itself can be like the workload can be restarted afterwards as well after the resizing is done. So it doesn't have to be built configurable in the online resizable feature. So that's the feedback I got.
So basically, it sounds like the feedback is that workload restart is not a huge deal for them.
Yeah, it's not a huge deal for them. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's good input. And we'll carry on that discussion. Next up is auditing CSI PVC code related to magical issue number whatever there. COF YC had agreed to take a look at this. Michelle, any updates on that?
Yeah, he did start to take a look at this, and he updated the bug with a very detailed analysis of potential problem areas. I think what we need to do next is to evaluate how critical are these issues. And if we need to, if we need to fix them urgently or not, or if, again, they are just some corner cases.
Was it one issue that he opened or multiple?
He updated the issue, I think this original issue, and then he opened a few others for other issues that he found.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. And last item is volume expansion for stateful sets. This was something I think SIG Apps was working on. Amant, any updates on this?
Yeah, so this is blocked currently on how do we handle like when the volume only supports offline resizing, like something like Azure Disk, how will we resize the workload? Do we have to take the entire stateful set down? Or is there a way we could do one pod at a time? So that's the thing that the author of the PR has to figure out, the author of the design has to figure out. We discussed this in SIG Apps briefly, but there's no resolution yet. So,
okay.
But again, the SIG Apps guidance I got was that this issue, particularly like how the offline only will work, is different from how the online resizing itself should work. So I presented both of them.
Okay. Both of them. Cool. Thank you, Amant. That concludes a review of the features that we're working on for 1.14. So let's go through PRs that need attention. Looks like Andrew, you've got one here. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so that is a PR for a KEP that proposes to promote the current volume zone region labels that are beta to GA. Michelle has been giving me some really good feedback on this, but I also wanted to kind of bring it up to the SIG and get official approval on this and see if there's any other issues that need to be addressed for this KEP.
What's the motivation for moving it to GA?
This is more just like cleanup. Those labels have been there since 1.3. So they're pretty much GA. They're just not named GA, and I think it's just confusing for users. And so just trying to do the right thing and get those labels GA'd. I don't think it's gonna be done for 1.14 though. So there's no rush to review it or anything, but just wanted to put it out there.
So now that we have the official topology feature, which is supposed to technically replace this, do we still need to move this to GA?
Yeah, so Michelle had mentioned this in another issue for this. So it seems like long-term, we just want to use the node affinity field in PVs. So I guess the question is like, do we still want the label information there just for informational purposes, or should we like redo, or should we like reconsider just removing the labels entirely for volumes? Either way, we still need the zone region information for nodes. So we'd just update the KEP to promote the labels for nodes and just ignore volumes.
Got it. Still.
There's also discussion around labels that CSI drivers add themselves, and if we to consolidate that information with what we have for entry volumes right now. So I probably for a separate KEP, but Michelle brought it up, so figured if.
Would it be worth breaking this KEP into two? One focusing on upgrading these for node, because I think that would be I think that needs to be done because there's no other answer for node. You can talk to SIG Node about that. I think they would be open to it.
Yeah, I already got SIG Node approval on this one, so it really just needs SIG Storage to.
Okay. With SIG Storage, my problem with promoting it to GA is we'll have two different ways of enforcing topology, essentially. And we have the new way, which is the way that we want everyone to use, and we have this way, which ideally we only maintain for backwards compatibility reasons. And I worry that if we promote this to GA, it will be hey, this is something that you should be using kind of thing, rather than, hey, it's only here for backwards compatibility.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess my concern was it'd be awkward to be at a point where we're supporting two different labels for zones and regions.
Mm-hmm.
And there'd be a point where people still use the beta labels for volumes, and then they're using the J volumes for nodes.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I think one of the problems we need to solve is to figure out how to update existing PVs that use only the beta labels to also add in the new PV node affinity. That way we can safely start ignoring beta labels altogether.
And is that something we're going to plan to do before GA? Or topology GA?
No, topology is already GA. So I think we need to solve, this was part of some of the post-topology work to just figure out how to get our existing PVs to be able to use the new way. I think before we can remove any logic that uses the zone labels, we'll need to figure this out.
Okay, so that makes sense. I think from the storage side, the answer is ideally we want to deprecate these labels. We want to replace them with the new topology functionality that we have. In order to do that, we first need to update the entry volume plugins to use the new topology feature, and then wait long enough that we can go ahead and safely deprecate these.
Yeah, so I think the main thing is the new plugin or the entry plugins already are using the new topology feature, but that's only for new PVs that are created.
So we're talking about migrating existing PVs.
So if you have like a PV from 1.3 that you've kept around after all these years, like we need a way to figure out how to automatically update that.
Yeah, and so we might have a similar problem with nodes. Highly unlikely, but still possible. And so to me, it made sense to kind of do it all together in a single effort.
Okay.
We can talk on the CAP too if this needs a longer discussion.
We've got 15 minutes left in this call, and I don't think there's anything else on the agenda, so feel free to use this as a design discussion. I prefer the answer of let's find a way to safely deprecate this label, and that way we don't have to promote it to GA, at least for storage. And for storage, we have the new topology mechanism that is replacing this, but agreed with Michelle, the challenge is safely migrating the old volumes that already exist. I vaguely remember that during an upgrade, API machinery potentially has a script that they can run on existing objects.
Yeah, when I asked API machinery about that, they were saying that script only works if the object changes versions.
I see.
Like the version gets bumped. But yeah, so I think at least from the talks with API machinery so far, I don't think there has been precedent for automatically updating fields on upgrade for the same object in the same version. So this is something we might have to work out with them on how we can do this.
Yeah, I'm thinking, is there a way that we can get away with not having to do the migration? But the problem is somebody could have created a volume into the very old version and just never recreated it. It just sits around and gets upgraded. The cluster gets upgraded multiple times. So that PV has existed for a very long time. And it's not going to magically get the new fields. So Yeah, I think we'll have to sort that out. Okay, so I guess the next steps are, let's talk to API machinery and see if there's a way to safely migrate the old volumes. And if we can do that, then deprecation is the way to go. If there's absolutely no way, or it's very, very difficult, then we can look into moving the feature to GA. And I think we'll still have to solve the problem of either, even if we move it to GA, we'll either have to maintain the beta logic forever or come up with a way to migrate the old PVs.
Yeah, so in the rough timeline was 118 is when we would start to ignore the beta labels.
Okay.
But I don't think we're going to go out of our way to intentionally delete the beta labels. We're just going to let them kind of go stale and do nothing with them.
Yeah, but the problem is we can never remove them.
We can never remove the logic that uses them.
Right. Unless we have a way to actually do the migration. And if we do, we can just deprecate it instead of moving it to GA. Okay, I think we have a way forward. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
If someone from SIG Storage can just kind of summarize that in the CAP PR, that'd be great.
Sure, I'll take a note to do that right after this. All right, if there are no other comments, questions, anything, then we'll go ahead and give you 10 minutes back in your day. Thank you very much for your time.